Hello, I'm Tomas Trevino, the El Paso District Engineer. Welcome to our first public series for the Paisano Drive and Montana Avenue corridor study with virtual and in-person options. We appreciate your interest in the study and thank you for your participation. The public meeting series has been convened to share study data and preliminary recommendations for the corridor and obtain your input. Please take your time and look through the public meeting material, and don't forget to send us your comments by phone, email, online survey, or mail with the provided forms. Your input on the proposed improvements is valuable and will help benefit the community. Thank you for shaping the future of Paisano Drive and Montana Avenue.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Wright, Public Information Officer with the Texas Department of Transportation, El Paso District. Welcome to the public meeting for the Pisano Drive and Montana Avenue corridor study. We are asking for and appreciate your feedback. Please note that you may pause this presentation at any point to allow more time to view the slides, and you may also pause the presentation and navigate forward or backward as needed. In this presentation, we will cover our data analysis, preliminary recommendations, and study schedule. This is followed by an explanation of how to provide comments for our study. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that November 7th, 2001 was the last deathless day on Texas roadways. That's a streak we want to break. Please help TxDOT end the streak of roadway fatalities by buckling up, driving the speed limit, putting down your phone, and never driving under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. The Paisano Drive study corridor extends approximately 11.5 miles from Sunland Park Drive to Montana Avenue, passing through downtown El Paso and under the Bridge of the Americas. The purpose of this study is to develop short, mid, and long-term improvements for multimodal, safety, connectivity, transportation operations, and drainage. Short-term refers to recommendations that could take up to 5 years for implementation, while mid-term refers to recommendations that could take 5 to 10 years, and long-term refers to recommendations that could take more than 10 years. The Montana Avenue corridor study extends approximately 9 miles from Paisano Drive to Loop 375 at Joe Battle. The purpose of this study is to develop short, mid, and long-term improvements for multimodal, safety, connectivity, and transportation operations. Short-term refers to recommendations that could take up to 5 years for implementation, while mid-term refers to recommendations that could take 5 to 10 years, and long-term refers to recommendations that could take more than 10 years. Existing conditions and data collection for the Paisano Drive and Montana Avenue corridor study, including population growth, crash statistics, and bike and transit information, can be found at the public meeting boards. As a preview to some of the recommendations found in the recommendation roll plots, Paisano Drive from Coldwell Street to Durango Street was identified as a major fatal crash location due to its sharp curved geometry. Some of the short-term recommendations for this area include installing curb and pavement markings, as well as transverse rumble strips and speed pavement markings to slow down traffic taking the sharp curve too quickly. Mid-term recommendations for this area include installing pedestrian hybrid beacons at San Antonio Street, Overland Avenue, and Durango Street, and a shared use path from Coldwell Street to El Paso Street. A potential bike share station is also proposed at Durango Street to encourage safe pedestrian and bike activity. 2 long-term recommendations for Paisano Drive between Coldwell Street and Durango Street are to realign the curve within the right-of-way to reduce curve radii and to add a signal at Durango Street if warranted by future traffic volumes. An alternative long-term recommendation for this area would be a roundabout at Coldwell Street to slow down speeding vehicles heading west toward Coldwell Street. The Paisano Drive and Delta Drive / Virginia Street intersection was identified as a location with unusual intersection geometry and a high number of crashes. The midterm recommendation for this location is to add a hooded left turn from westbound Paisano Drive to Virginia Street and only allow right turns to and from Virginia Street and Delta Drive. Vehicles wanting to travel west from Virginia Street and Delta Drive will be directed to the traffic signal at St. Vrain Street, which is 1 block east. On Paisano Drive at the Bridge of the Americas, potential pedestrian drop-off and pickup areas are recommended in the northwest, northeast, and southeast quadrants. Due to recent lane geometry changes, San Antonio Avenue has vehicles traveling north to merge onto I-110. Since San Antonio Avenue only connects to the neighborhood community, the midterm recommendation is to close access to San Antonio Avenue. Another midterm recommendation for Paisano Drive is a shared use path on the northern side from Copia Street to Alameda Avenue, connecting 3 schools, the zoo, and the Bridge of the Americas for multimodal use. In this area, we are also proposing 2 pedestrian hybrid beacons at the locations of existing pedestrian bridges, which are proposed for removal. The beacons would allow school children to cross safely without the underused pedestrian bridges. The intersection of Paisano Drive and El Paso Drive has an atypical geometry and high delays. To improve the intersection, we are proposing installing video detection, optimizing traffic signal timing, and extending the northbound left lane in the short term. The midterm recommendations include closing northbound access on Chelsea Street and closing the right turn entrance to the U-turn from Paisano Drive. The long-term recommendations for Paisano Drive and El Paso Drive are to change the geometry of Chelsea Street to tie into the intersection directly and to add an additional lane in the eastbound direction. Another long-term option would be a roundabout at El Paso Drive to keep all turning movements. The charts show how these 2 recommendations affect the level of service and delay. At the Paisano Drive and Montana Avenue intersection, the short-term recommendation is to optimize traffic signal timing and install edge-line pavement markings and signage. The long-term recommendation is to add an additional sign pole and consolidate the intersection geometry to allow for pedestrian movements. Montana Avenue and Buffalo Soldier Road recommendations include removing overhead railroad flashers. It also includes midterm recommendations of adding an additional northbound left turn lane and extending the curb west of the intersection to create a hooded left turn. A long-term recommendation to help with the capacity at major intersections along Montana Avenue is a below-grade bypass lane at Buffalo Soldier Road / Airway Boulevard and Hawkins Boulevard / Maddox Street. The bypass lane would allow through traffic to bypass the traffic signals by going through underground lanes. The intersections themselves would remain similar with turn lanes. This typical section shows another view of the proposed below-grade bypass lanes with 1 12-foot bypass lane in each direction and 2 12-foot frontage roads on either side. The level of service charts show how delay and level of service improves with the bypass lanes. This project was kicked off in August 2022. On November 3, 2022 and May 24, 2023, agency work group meetings were held and attended by over 100 stakeholders. The first public meeting series is being held October 17th and October 18th, 2023, with a virtual option. We will reconvene next spring with our final agency work group meeting and a second public meeting series. The draft corridor study report is planned to be submitted in spring 2024 with a final submittal in summer 2024. We are currently in the corridor study stage of the process, where we're focused on data gathering and preliminary analysis to assess the practicality of short, mid, and long-term recommendations. Should TxDOT decide to proceed with the study recommendations, the projects must go through TxDOT's project development process. Several major tasks and more opportunities for public input would follow before construction could begin, including identifying funding for the projects. Public input is critical to this project, and we appreciate your feedback. Comments may be submitted in a number of ways: via the project website, by email, or U.S. mail at the addresses shown on the screen. As part of this initial study phase, all comments must be submitted on or before Wednesday, November 1st, 2023, to be included in the official recording for this meeting. Thank you for your participation. Hello,